Welcome again to this series on strategies for online tests and exams. In this video, we'll be discussing the preparation process. And we're going to begin by looking at how you go about studying for these online tests and exams. So there's a number of useful questions that we should consider when thinking about how to prepare for the exams from a studying perspective. First, what times of day do you study best? So are you more of a morning person or an evening person? Second, what times of day is your study environment best suited to focus study? So if you're someone who is studying at home, maybe there's other people in your home who are studying, or there's a lot of busyness at certain times of day, you may want to think about what's the best time for you to study in a focused way. Are there times during the week when you could connect with your peers or engage in group study? So this could be something that you do informally, or you could join some kind of a study group that may be available on campus. But in either case, think about opportunities for you to connect with others as a way of accelerating your learning. Think also about whether or not it's possible to study at a time of day that's similar to the time of day of your test. So a lot of research demonstrates that if you have an exam that's taking place at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's more effective for you also to study at that time as well. So try and marry your study time up with when you've actually got the exam that relates to it. And then finally, what courses will you focus on each day? So it's better to have a determined focus of what you're going to be putting your energies into for that particular day, rather than chopping and changing every 30 minutes or so. So try to have a clear idea of what's the emphasis of your study in any given study period. When considering when to study, try and create a study schedule that first of all acknowledges the fixed items in your life. So fixed items could be your class times, your tutorials, but could also be extracurricular activities, your faith-based practices, could be family commitments, your sleep and meal routine. So base everything around those fixed items. Once you have those fixed items in place, you're then in a position to create study blocks that fit around those fixed items. Try to create some flex time between your study blocks. A lot of students tend to just create study blocks which are just back to back and literally just minute by minute and hour by hour. The problem with that is that if one thing goes wrong, it can have an impact on everything else that comes after it. So it's better for you to create some generalized study blocks that you can work within. Try to have an objective or a goal for each study period so you know that your activities are focused. And try to summarize what you studied at the end of each study session. So this is good practice both to help you consolidate your learning, but it also gives you a starting point when you come back to your studies the next day. Something else to consider is the Pomodoro method. So the Pomodoro method suggests that we should study in smaller shifts with small breaks to refresh our focus. Now, typically the Pomodoro method suggests that you use study blocks of around about 25 minutes in length, followed by a 5-minute break and then going back to a further 25 minutes. The idea behind it is that after a certain point our attention span begins to decrease, and as a result what we do after that point isn't as fruitful. Every so often though, it's worth taking an extended break, maybe to get something to eat, go for a walk, just again to continue that refresh process. One thing worth noting though is that the Pomodoro method and the 25-minute gaps is really an ideal, but in no way does it mandate that you have to do it in that particular way. The key principle is for you to take regular breaks as often as you need to. So you may be a student who feels you can study for up to 40 minutes or 45 minutes without taking a break. That's totally fine. The most important thing is for you to begin to acknowledge when you feel as though you're getting distracted or you're not as focused as you were before. That's when you should begin to think about taking a break. Whether you're studying for 25 minutes or 45 minutes, you'll find that there will be external distractions that can really move your focus away from your studies. So here are a few ideas to help you to manage some of those external distractions. So try and keep your technology turned off while you're reading. That could even be just moving your phone to the other side of the room, put it on silent, but typically it's better if you can keep it away from you so that you don't get distracted by any notifications. Again, similar to that, place your phone a distance away from you. Some may go as far as moving it to a different room. Make sure your notifications are turned off, or if you can't turn all your notifications off, just try and keep just the essential ones on. Maybe those that are from key family members, for example. There are a whole range of different apps that can be used to block any tempting websites. So some examples are Freedom, Focus, and Firefox and Chrome have additional add-ons. You could ask a reliable friend to check in with you to keep you accountable, particularly if you're maybe living with other students. You could also study with friends, whether it's online or in person, so that you can keep each other accountable by really focusing on a conversation and working together rather than using technology to communicate. You could also choose an environment where there's nothing to do but read or study. So think about maybe studying outside of your bedroom, maybe where you have your phone, your TV, music systems and so on. Try and study in a place where there's less distractions that are likely to kick in. And then finally, remind yourself of your goals. So keep your goals listed somewhere prominent. So keeping them on your notice board, on your fridge, wherever you're studying, even a little sticky note on your computer. Anything just to keep you focused on what it is you're trying to accomplish. In addition to external distractions, there can also be internal distractions. So this could just be in terms of our attention span. It could be to do with how we're feeling. So try and determine how long you can focus before you need to take a short break. Do something that's going to increase concentration once in a while. For example, taking a break, going for a walk, getting fresh air, doing some light exercise. You could even write down any competing thoughts on a piece of paper so you can address them later. So sometimes it may be that you get a message or a notification, or someone comes in or gives you a call, and as a result of that you begin to move your focus somewhere else. If you can just get a piece of paper, write that down, once you finish that study period you can come back to whatever that competing issue was. Try to identify the conditions that help you focus and prioritize those. So again, it could be where you're studying, could be when you're studying, it could be whether you've eaten, what you've been drinking, that kind of thing. Determine what time of day you focus best and do your most challenging study at that time. So if you're someone who is typically a morning person, you might find that your most difficult study is most effective in the mornings. Whereas if you're someone who gets tired and fatigued after 6 o'clock, that may be a time when you want to do more mundane tasks like your chores and so on. But maybe writing an essay at that time isn't very fruitful. Also, think about exercising self-compassion. So with this, it's really focusing on just trying to be understanding of your own needs and trying not to put too much pressure on yourself. Understanding that, like everyone, you're going to have good days and bad days when it comes to your studies. There are also some practical considerations that need to be taken into account when preparing for your online test or exam. Aim to create an exam inventory that includes a list of all the materials and resources you're likely to need for the exam, so you can get all those materials ready beforehand. Confirm the format. What type of test is it? Is it multiple choice? Is it long answer questions? Importantly, is it invigilated? If so, how? What materials are going to be allowed? When you're reviewing, try and do so in the conditions of the test. The research, specifically the encoding specificity principle, demonstrates that those who are able to study or prepare for a particular event in the same format as the event itself will tend to perform better when that event does take place. So in this case, if you can study at the same time, environment as the same conditions you're going to face in the exam or test, you tend to do better. Think about also organizing a virtual study group where you can ask and answer questions. That tends to accelerate learning. And if you do find that your test or exam has multiple choice questions, try to create something similar in an online format, for example using the application Kahoot. Aim to create some form of summary sheet for your open book tests. It can be tempting to just rely upon your class materials and your textbooks in the test or exam, but it's good if you can create a summary sheet because for one, you'll be able to consolidate key information, and two, it gives you quick, easy access to key factors and key data that you may need for the test or exam. Try also to flag any key material, things that you think are going to be prominent in the exam, so using sticky notes and maybe colored tabs. Make sure you're tech ready, so a key conversation to have is with your professor or your TA to find out what the process or procedure would be if there is something that goes wrong with your computer or with your online browser or with Quarkus when you're taking your test or exam. In a similar way, it's worthwhile creating a troubleshooting reference sheet where you've got easy access to contact information for the IT help desk and perhaps support resources for anything that may go wrong with Quarkus. It's really important that you book your test with accessibility services on your campus well in advance. It is important that you find out what the requirements are on your campus in terms of the timeline and also the process. Consider how you're going to manage your environment, so think about reducing any distractions. So for example, it could be using some kind of a sound buffer, so white noise, instrumental music, cafe sounds, whatever works best for you. Focus also on how to eliminate any online temptations. So again, using any applications to block websites that could be used as a distraction for you. And also think about removing any devices. Really important to put a sign on your door so those who you're living with are aware that you're taking a test or exam. It may even be worth even posting a schedule so they know at what points you're going to be studying and preparing for the exam. So again, they know not to disrupt your studies. Set up your workspace in a way that everything is organized. You have easy access to all of your materials. So think about how you're going to declutter, but also making sure that you've got all of your key materials handy. So things that are going to be really important are going to be things like a charger, any scrap paper, pens, pencils. Think also about having all of your open book materials and resources like calculators, but also really important, think about having the essentials like having access to water, healthy snacks. So if you do feel the need, you don't need to go downstairs into your kitchen to go and get these items. They're right there in front of you. So again, you maximize the time you have for your exam. Thank you for watching this presentation. In the next presentation, you're going to be learning about some of the things you need to be considering on the day of the exam itself.